Hello and welcome to a video on finding the lowest common multiple by listing. Now we've already looked at multiples of a number, so we should know how to find multiples. So we're just going to take it a step further in this lesson. So first of all, let's go through an example. So we need to find the lowest common multiple of 8 and 20. So firstly, I'm going to list some multiples of 8, and then I'm going to list the multiples of 20, and then I'm going to see which ones they have in common. So the multiples of 8. Well, the first multiple of 8 is just 8. So it's just our 8 times tables. So 8 times 1 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. 8 times 3 is 24. 8 times 4 is 32. 8 times 5 is 40. 8 times 6 is 48. 8 times 7 is 56. I'm just going to do a few more. 8 times 8 is 64, 8 times 9 is 72, and 8 times 10 is 80. So I've just listed out the first 10 multiples of 8. And now let's do the same thing with 20. So 1 times 20 is 20, 2 times 20 is 40. Now I can stop here, and the eagle-eyed amongst you may have noticed that I have common multiples. So 40 is a multiple of 8, and 40 is also a multiple of 20. So let's just circle that. 40 is a multiple of both numbers. So we have finished. We have found the lowest common multiple. The lowest common multiple of 8 and 20 is 40. Now we could keep going just to find some other common multiples. So let's do that. So the third multiple of 20 is going to be 60. And then 4 times 20 is 80. And again, notice we've got common multiples. 80 is a multiple of 8, and it's also a multiple of 20. But we're asked to find the lowest common multiple. So the lowest common multiple is just the first one that appears twice. And we can see that that is 40. Let's do one more example. So let's work out the lowest common multiple of 7 and 11. So just like before, let's first of all list out all of the multiples of 7. Now let's do our multiples of 11, and the multiples of 11 are a lot easier to do than 7. So we'll start off with 11, and then we've got 22, 33, 44, 55. And if we just pause there, well, we don't have any common multiples at the moment, so we'll just have to keep going. 66, that's not a multiple of 7. 77, and we are there. We have found the first common multiple, which is 77. So the lowest common multiple of 7 and 11 is 77. As soon as we find the first one, we can just stop. Okay, so it's over to you now. Pause the video and see if you can find the lowest common multiple of the numbers, the pairs of numbers in the brackets. And for the last question, there are actually 3 numbers to have a go at. Okay, so let's go through the first one. The lowest common multiple of 6 and 8. So again, let's write down the multiples of 6 and the multiples of 8 first. And now we've done that, we can just identify the first common multiple, and that is 24. 24 is the first number that appears in both lists. So our lowest common multiple is 24. Now let's move on to question 2, the lowest common multiple of 9 and 15. And if we do the same thing as before, we just need to identify the first number that appears in both lists. And it looks like that is 45. 45. So our lowest common multiple is 45. Okay, moving on to question 3. So the lowest common multiple of 12 and 60. Now, you may have noticed that I've only written out the first multiple of 60. And the reason is because the first multiple of 60 is also a multiple of 12. So we don't need to go any further. The lowest common multiple of 12 and 60 is 60, and that is because 60 is in the 12 times tables. So our lowest common multiple is 60. Okay, we've got one more here to do. So find the lowest common multiple of 3, 4 and 5. So just like before, I'm going to list out all the multiples of 3, 4 and 5. So I'm going to have 3 lists this time. Okay, so I've listed out quite a few multiples of 3, 4 and 5, and the reason why I've had to write down so many is because it's not until we get to 60 until we notice that they all have 60 in common as a multiple. 60 is the smallest number that appears in both all three lists. So the lowest common multiple of 3, 4 and 5 is 60. Now you may have been thinking while you were doing that long arduous task of writing out all of the multiples of each number, is there a quicker way of getting the answer? And the short answer to that is yes, there is. And it involves prime factorization, which we have already covered in previous videos to do with factors and the highest common factor. And we can also apply that to the lowest common multiple. That's what we're going to have a look at in the next video. Hopefully I'll see you there. Take care.